John, I have had this song in my head for days and I cannot get rid of it.
You mean you have an earworm?
Wasn't that what they used at the beginning of Wrath of Khan?
Not an actual worm, Sean. This worm is a catchy or memorable piece of music that continuously occupies your mind even after it's no longer being played.
Okay, that makes more sense.
What's the song?
Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier.
Well, at least it's Never Gonna Give You Up.
Wait, did I just get rickrolled?
Let's start the show.
Dopamine highs and memory lanes. Synapses dance while Sean entertains. Left side logic, right side flair. It's a mental circus in the podcast air. Sean teaches Sean about his brain.
Welcome back to John Teaches Sean About His Brain, the podcast where John and I discuss what is going on in the world and what it has to do with our brains. Today's episode is all about music in the brain. Music that won't leave your brain alone, actually. You know it, the song that loops nonstop, the melody that pops in out of nowhere, or the music you swear you're hearing even when the room is silent. We're digging into earworms, why the brain loves them, why it sometimes refuses to let them go. I want to talk about musicophilia, the deep, often emotional bond between music and the nervous system, and how that connection can be so powerful it borders on obsession. And then, if I can get a little further, I want to talk about musical hallucinations, where the brain generates sound with no external music at all. So why does the brain do this? Is it a glitch, a feature? And what do attention, memory, stress, and prediction have to do with the soundtrack playing in your head? Stick around, because by the end of this episode, you may never hear that song in your head the same way again. Hi, John. It's good to see you.
It is great seeing you, Sean. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. I read this article as I do. So let me go back. I didn't want to do this long form. It's going to take me a little while to get there.
Okay.
But there's this movie that came out in 2017, I want to say. Very underrated. I heard about it on another podcast, but and I'll get back to that movie. It's called Wild Rose. But that movie led me to reading this article about the song that was written for that movie. And I stumbled on this term, musicophilia. And have you heard of it before?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to get kind of to the technical side of that too, because I found a book on musicophilia written by Oliver Sacks.
Uh-huh.
But it seems like that's where the name of this thing comes from. Is that accurate?
That's a good question. I don't know if he came up with that name or...
I can't find anywhere where there's like a medical diagnosis or anything that from the medical field that says, because you and I have talked about naming conventions, right? People sometimes who discover it, it's named after them or all that stuff. And musicophilia, I just can't find it anywhere. Everything I find takes me back to this book by Sacks.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your understanding from your level of what this phenomenon is?
Yeah. So my first thought, one of the first times I read about it was in Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks, which has written some great books like The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Anthropologist from Mars, and some of those. Unfortunately, I think this was after he passed away, right? He's gone, I think.
I don't know.
I think this was discovered after he passed.
He passed away in 2015.
Yeah. When people started going through his notes and things like that he made up some of the stories he wrote about and some of his clinical cases that he would write about.
Oh, wait, is this book he did?
In all his books.
Okay.
And, but which is so disappointing because I loved Oliver Sacks.
Let's stop this podcast right now. I don't
start over, not bring his name up.
No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
But, we always talk about, science and what's true and what isn't. And scientists are held to a different standard and all this. And then you find out he's fudged it. But the point is, he wasn't found out because how he was fudging things was not, it was always in the right direction. So he would have a finding, and instead of reporting his finding like in his books, he would embellish it. So it was going in the right direction. He would just add interesting stories around it, which weren't always accurate. So the science part was true, but he embellished, which is kind of disappointing because I feel like scientists, and he was a medical doctor. I think he was a psychiatrist, I believe. But anyway, people in the medical field and researchers should be held to a higher standard. So that's a little bit disappointing. But having said that, his books are really good, and they talk about, clinical cases, things that are a little bit unusual, but, atypical, but interesting about how the brain works. And musicophilia is one of those. And there has been quite a bit of research around it. I think it's one of those things that's just, as far as people seeking help for it, is rare enough that maybe it's not mentioned in medical books, but there is a lot of information about it. And it's really where you just get a song stuck in your head. I mean, it happens to all of us, I'm sure. For some reason, Christmas is the worst time for me because this happens to me a lot. Does it happen to you? Do you have songs that you can't get out of your mind a lot? I mean, it happens a lot. Yeah. And
all the time.
Mine, I'll be just minding my own business and not being bothered by anything. And Casey will walk by humming like Deck the Halls or something around Christmas. And then it's just, I don't even know. Sometimes I don't even realize it when she passes what she's done. But when she's gone, all of a sudden that's going in my head and I'm kind of singing it or humming it too. And I'm like, and then I can't get rid of it. So it happens a lot. And that's an earworm where it's kind of like something you hear over and over. And I think you had a question I started answering and got sidetracked with.
No. I have an admission for the listeners and for you, because you have mentioned Sachs and the other books before, and I never put it together. I didn't realize that was the guy who wrote the book that you have mentioned on this podcast. I didn't. Yeah. Maybe I should pay better attention. Maybe I shouldn't admit this. But when I brought this topic up, I didn't realize the correlation between the two. So just being fully transparent, my bad on that one. But
no reason to.
Let me go back to do you know who Mary Steenburgen is? Mm-hmm. Okay, she's an actress.
She's
actors. Mm-hmm. Married to Ted Danson.
Ted Danson.
No, she's married to Ted Danson. Yeah. And so here's a story that I was reading. And so in 2007, Mary Steenburgen, she's having, I don't know if you call it routine, but she's having a very low invasive, well, it's somewhat invasive because she gets put under, but she's having surgery on her arm. It's not an uncommon surgery. It's not anything crazy. Let's just say that. Okay. There's nothing outlandish about the procedure. They put her under. She has successful surgery on her arm, according to her. And I can only go off her own accounts because it's happening in her own head. When she comes out of the anesthesia, according to her, she doesn't feel right. Something feels off. Then, as she, I would say in her mind, fully came out of surgery, she had this music in her head that she couldn't turn off. And it's not what you're describing. It's not Deck the Halls playing. According to her, every person who spoke to her, she could only hear music. When she looked around the room, everything was music to her. So
when you said when people spoke, was it like auto-tune? Like it sounded like they were singing what they were saying? Or
she was hearing it as it was being sung to her. She was hearing notes and lyrics when they were talking to her. Again, I don't know Mary Steenburgen. I read an article about her, this thing, and it fascinated me. Because what's to follow is even more fascinating. So she obviously feels like there's now something wrong with her mentally, and she's trying to explain it to people. And these are doctors and nurses in the beginning. And then she is telling her son, who's an adult, she's telling Ted Danson. And even though they didn't use those words in her story, she's like, they both thought I was nuts because they couldn't understand. She said she was driving and the street signs were being registered as music to her. And again, the article was not that in depth. So I don't understand what some of these things mean to her when she says these things, but I was fascinated by that. And so then, because at first it was like a little bit annoying, and then she started to get scared and before this, she had never played an instrument. She started picking up instruments and trying to learn how to play them. She couldn't stop. It was an obsession. So imagine, like, for you, cognitive neuroscientists know how the brain works. Imagine you wake up one day and everything is music and it's an obsession. It's not like, man, I really like music, I'm going to listen to some records. It is an all-consuming obsession with all things music. Now, according to her son, he claims she tried to learn the accordion. That was the most annoying instrument that she tried to learn. But at one point, she, she's
so this lasted a long time.
It lasted quite a while for her. Now, she couldn't focus.
Yeah. So
according to her at that time, she couldn't act. She couldn't learn lines. She couldn't do anything because of this thing going on in her head. And so she had a friend of hers in the music business, songwriter, all that stuff. She calls her friend and says, can you just come over every day for the next couple of weeks and just write down all the stuff that's going on in my head? And so through that process, according to this article, Steenburgen, who didn't know how to play an instrument before, again, she learned several instruments, wrote 12 songs.
What? She learned to play instruments and she started writing songs?
Oh, it gets way worse. It's why I wanted to talk to you about this on this podcast. It's been living rent free in my head for several days now. And so this article is the first mention of Musicophilia that I stumbled across, which led to me finding the book, going down this rabbit hole, finding other brain phenomenon that deal with music. But anyway, so she sends those 12 songs under a pseudonym to a music lawyer. And that music lawyer secures her a deal, a songwriting contract with Universal Music. This is Mary Steenburgen, by the way. Just want to remind everybody.
Wow.
And so she, over the next 10 years, keeps writing songs, keeps more instruments, all of that. So she writes this song called No Place Like Home. That's the parenthetical. It's actually called Glasgow. But that song ends up being used in the movie that I mentioned, Wild Rose. That song gets nominated for an Oscar, an Academy Award for Best Original Songwriting. Now, I don't believe she won. I meant to look it up.
Wow.
I don't think she won, but she was nominated for an Oscar for songwriting.
Wow, man.
Now, the movie Wild Rose itself is it's a really good movie. That song's really good, but the fact that, again, Mary Steenburgen wrote it, got nominated for it, and she is not she was never involved musically with anything prior to that. So I'm gonna put you on the spot. Crazy. I don't expect a technical answer, but what are your initial thoughts about that story? What do you think?
So, man, that's a crazy story, but I do believe it. I mean, I don't think she can't make it up if she's getting nominated for different awards. So, I believe what she's saying. So that's a little, to me, as you were talking about that, it sounded a little bit like synesthesia as well, where she's seeing a sign and that sign, the view of it sounds like music. What she's seeing sounds like something.
Yeah.
So that sounded like a little bit of a twist there, but I know that there's cases where people have gone into surgery and they come out with like an earworm where they're hearing a song that won't stop for like several weeks after the surgery. And, or if they've had, like one example, this might have been in Oliver Sacks' book, the lady who fell and hit her head for a long time. I can't remember the song. There was a song that wouldn't stop. It was either It's a Small World or
not that
Won't
song.
You Be My Neighbor. It was something like that from her past.
Small
And
world.
she said she absolutely hated the song.
Mm.
So it was something that she would never have chosen. If she could have picked one song to hear over and over, that
It
would have
wouldn't
been
be
one of the
that.
last ones,
Yep.
because she hated it before that started, and then it was just driving her up a wall. So, and it went on for several weeks before it finally slowed and then stopped, but it was just nonstop. And her report was that while people were talking to her, it's not that they sounded like music, it's just she couldn't hardly hear them over the music in her head because it was so loud.
That
So
might be more accurate to describe the story I told. I don't know. That would make way more sense. That the song is playing so loud in your head you can't hear what people are saying.
yeah, I mean, that makes maybe more sense to us.
To me.
Yeah,
Well,
to me too. But yet when it comes to things that the brain does, sometimes it's just off the wall where it's like, that doesn't make any sense. And it can still be that. So it could still be the kind of the auto-tune thing. That might have been what was happening. I don't know. But no, that's very interesting. I don't know if you're asking how it could happen in the brain. I'm not sure. I know that earworms happen. You know, we've talked about the motor cortex, and you know about the motor cortex, but there's some, are they called fixed action patterns or something like that? Anyway, or motor programs where they start and they they finish. It's hard to interrupt them. Like once you start a pattern, you go through the motion to finish it. I don't remember what those are called. I think it's like fixed action motor movements or something. They're usually really short, and they you can learn them, but they become part of a larger skill, and it's just a few movements that get compacted together, and then once you start it, you kind of go through those movements. And anyway, it's really difficult to interrupt that.
okay.
So the idea is that this creates the kind of like that same pattern, but it creates a loop, and that maybe the basal ganglia is involved from, forming habits and things like that, that it just starts on the loop and it's hard to stop that loop. It's hard to get out of the loop. So like I'll think to myself, stop singing Deck of the Halls, just stop. And then while I'm focusing on it, it stopped. And then I go, good. And I'll go start to do something. And the next thing I know, I'm humming it again. I'm like, I don't even know I'm doing it till I realize I'm doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I do.
It just keeps coming back. So it might be that kind of habit forming thing. As you can tell, I don't think to my knowledge, there's not a really good, a really satisfying answer to why it happens. But
that's why I wanted to suss this out with you, because I know this isn't your speciality and I didn't know what you knew about it, but it's interesting that as much as we know about the brain, we've talked about technology, all the stuff you can do with imaging. This feels like, because listen, let me just stop for a second. Music for us, humans, I don't even want to say humans. I think just music feels universal. And maybe we talked about this before, but in the movie, oh my God, I just lost the name of Encounters of the Third Cut First. Oh my God, how do I not know that movie? But I'll come back to it. But they use music as the universal language between an alien ship and humans. I mean, and I know that's not a documentary, but
no,
but it
music
still
is powerful.
speaks
Yeah.
to the power that music has to communicate. It does something to us. There are times where you walk into a room and a certain song's playing, you kind of start moving with it, right? Like, so just how powerful music is. But there are so many, at least that I've found, studies and theories and things about music and the brain that we just don't know.
Yeah. Music is so powerful. And I don't know, one of my favorite shows is American Idol, just because of the stories now. So when Simon Cowell was on it, I wasn't as big a fan, because they would put people up who couldn't sing, and then you're kind of like making fun. Then all of America gets to make fun of them and laugh at them. And I didn't really like that part of it. And now they don't do that. It's just the really good singers, and they tell stories around it. And usually a story of why a person started singing or why they wrote a song. I don't know. It's just really powerful. And music is powerful. People, it can be really emotional or really, so it can be, sad or really happy. It brings out a lot of emotions. We know the brain processes music similar to how it processes language, but it has a whole, like for most people, the left hemisphere is language and the right hemisphere is music. So it takes up a large real estate in the brain. We also know that music seems to lock in neural patterns, and the way kind of the brain oscillates, it will oscillate around music beats. And so it's tuned to music for some reason. People who stutter a lot and they have difficulty saying their words and speaking, a lot of times they'll just, if they're really they can sing without stuttering, so they'll sing their words.
Oh no, see, why can I not think of anything? There's a country singer,
Mel Tillis,
yeah, and had a really bad stutter but could sing without stuttering.
Yeah, so it's something about music is just different. Our brain process it's obviously really important because of all the things that the way our brain handles music. It's obviously something that's really important. But yeah, I think I told you on the show that one time that or maybe it's just when we were talking, but I told Casey that I don't have regrets. Like, I don't look back and have all these regrets that I'm thinking about. But I said, if I do have a regret, it's probably one of them will be that I didn't listen to more music, because I love music and I get busy and I don't listen to it. And then when I do, I'm thinking, oh man, why don't I just listen to more music and, to relax or whatever at the end of the day. But yeah, it's just music is powerful.
So going back to I think, and boy, I didn't do a lot of research on this, I'm sorry, but I stumbled on, I think earworms, musical hallucinations, some of these other things fall under, at least when it started in the 80s, this field of research was studying involuntary musical imagery. And so INMI was this field of study. But listen to they didn't even start studying this till the 80s. Which to me, I know sounds like a long time ago, but it's not that long ago.
No, it's not very long.
As far as like brain research goes, right?
Right.
And even then, I don't know that there's been that much progress in finding out. So, you had said music, but they've done some research on like what kind of music makes people productive, artistic. You know what I mean? So music can actually be manipulated. The brain can be manipulated through music.
Yeah.
And they're able to prove that. And so this connection that I'm trying to find, and no one's found, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but the connection that what is it about music the brain responds to? That's rhetorical, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, like fast food restaurants a lot of times will play upbeat music because research shows people eat faster and feel the urge to get up and leave sooner. And then in really nice restaurants where you're going to order an extra glass of wine and things like that, it's always slow, calm music, and you stay longer. So the type of music, like if they played really upbeat music in an Italian restaurant of evenings,
you'd have people cycling through too fast. I have a question unrelated to music, but who figures this stuff out? So I know that I believe that we've talked about it, but on the show, but I know we've talked about it off the show, but the color scheme of a restaurant. So red, white, and yellow induce hunger. And so those colors, red, white, and yellow, right? Yeah. Think about every fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
They all have similar color schemes, right?
I think they're also, they have those color schemes for hunger, but also for like your arousal levels up, which would be hunger, but also more excitement. And again, to eat faster and finish faster.
With those colors, do?
With colors. So colors and music have both.
Well, yeah. So that's what I'm saying is who figured out in the restaurant industry or sold it to the restaurant industry, paint your fast food restaurant this color, play this kind of music, most amount of profit, because you get people, hungry and excited to come in. You play upbeat music, they're going to eat fast and leave, and our turnover is great.
Yeah, and another study showed that if you have a clown, they'll eat faster too. Like a monster that eats burgers and a clown. No, I'm kidding. Ronald McDonald.
I got what you were doing there, but I'm being serious. Like no. You're going to have a fancy sit down restaurant where you want people to have dessert and wine. We're going to push all these things. We're going to paint it a different color, so they're usually
darker
brown
colors,
or dark color. Muted,
lights
dark
are low.
colors. Lights are low, music is slower.
And not a lot of windows. Like fast food, there's a lot of windows and a lot of bright lights. And
Yes. Who's the maniac that's figuring out how to fleece me
I don't
in the
know,
food industry?
But now I'm thinking, if I went into a fast food restaurant and there were no windows and it was kind of dark and the music was slow, I would probably run the other way. Like, I'm not going to eat in there.
Well, you have a schema for a fast food restaurant, and it would violate it, and it would send all those danger signs.
Yeah,
see, I'm learning, John. I
feel
I
would
yes,
say
it
get
would
out.
tell you to leave.
It's. I think that you're right. Like marketing groups are just trying to find an edge on how do we get an edge for marketing, and so they, as psychologists, are always looking for things to study, and especially if you give them a grant to study it, they'll study things. So, yeah, marketing it usually comes down to the dollar, right?
Well, unfortunately, I have to admit, yes, but I just don't like it. I don't like that they're manipulating what they know about my brain to try to. I don't like it.
Yeah. So, but you've mentioned music. You mentioned hallucinations a couple of times, and I find that really fascinating.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So, well, go ahead. Tell me about.
No, I just said let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, I mentioned it, but I'm finding that it's described as number one, a rare auditory experience where individuals hear melodies, songs, or instruments without any external sound source, which often causes distress to the listener.
But they believe that it is coming from external. Like you can usually tell when there's something in your head. Like if you're going over a song, I can tell when that's in my head versus if Casey hums it or if I hear it on a radio, I know that's external. But the hallucination part is it sounds like something in the environment. Like people will go check their radio to make sure it's off because it sounds like it's coming from outside and they're hearing it instead of inside. So that's the hallucination part.
So music aside, and what we're talking about aside, I'm not comparing the two, but schizophrenia is when you hear your inner voices externally. Is that somewhat fair? It's an oversimplification, but you're hearing voices.
Yes, but sometimes, I need to be careful on this.
I'm sorry, I realize
but
the way that I started it.
People with schizophrenia will know that it's coming from inside their head, but they feel like it's like the government has used some kind of a device to put that inside their head. So that can also be a part of it. So I think it's sometimes they feel like, and so that's why a lot of times they attribute it to God. God told me to do this because it's an audible voice inside their head that they know is not them, is what they'll say. Sometimes. But I think it's also that I think it can be both, but I'm not sure. I better not comment.
I won't make you go. Because we're not talking about that. I just wanted to I'm just interested in the idea that there is no, let me do this. You asked one time if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? And the answer is no.
Right.
It doesn't. But the tree, if I am standing there, the tree falling, the wind, it hit, all that stuff makes noise. And it vibrates off my eardrums, and my brain goes, a tree fell. I'm oversimplifying this.
And the crashing sound, because you took the sensation, the physical energy that the tree causes, and like disturbing the air and things like that. Your brain then converts that into a perception, and sound is a perception, not a sensation. So if there's no device there to perceive it, then it's just still a sensation. It's just physical energy.
Right. Yeah. But here, to tie it back into what I'm talking about, there is no physical energy. But my brain is perceiving music, an instrument, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so this is where I'm trying to get to, of like, I could be sitting here and hearing music, even though there is no physical energy that is hitting my eardrums, vibrating them.
It's kind of like, phantom limb. We were talking about that, where you feel somebody has their arm amputated, like their left arm amputated, but their left pinky finger is hurting, even though it's not there. So it's that phantom pain. There's different causes for it, but that's something similar. So with musical hallucinations, it's that you're right. Their brain is processing a sound. Sometimes it's like a full orchestra that they're hearing, and
Yeah.
they go over to the radio to turn it down. There's nothing there. And I think so. When we talked about memory, I don't know if you remember that far back, but when we were talking
I see
about,
what you did there too. I don't know if you remember we were talking about when we talked about memory.
I don't know if you can remember this conversation, but it was about memory. So people have what's called the reminiscence bump. Do you remember that? Where if you look at, like if you have older people recall as many memories as they recall, and then how old they were when it happens, it seems like right around between the ages of like 15 and 25, like right around 18, 19, 20 years old, with a little few years before and after that, is where most of their memories come from. And then it drops off, and then they have another bump like around their wedding day or their child being born or whatever, and then it'll drop off. And so the memories, there's these bumps in the timeline of memories if they're free recalling. It's not like, do you remember this happening, where you're having them recognize a memory. It's when you're having them just free recall memories in their life, like name things that happened in your life. And so that's called the reminiscence bump. And that's mostly because people believe that's not only are those some really crazy things going on in your life when you're graduating high school and getting married and there's college, all the things going on. So there's a lot of emotional content, but it's also where your brain is developing at a certain area where things are more emotional. It's kind of like I don't want to say a critical period, but it's a period where it's really important for you to know what's happening to you and know why and what ramifications those will have. So your brain is like turned everything up so that it can learn faster during that time. And so then it creates these emotional memories, is the theory that creates the reminiscence bump. It's why you remember during emotional times, you remember those better. And that might be that time. So people with music hallucinations, it's usually for people that are losing their hearing. And then they almost always have hallucinations from like big band music or hymns or patriotic songs from that time in their past, like from the time during the reminiscence bump, like what I was listening to in my teens is what I'm hearing. So it's like Freddie and the Heartbreaks. I don't know what the 50s songs were. I don't know if that's really
I see what you're doing, tying like as we get older. So elderly people are more likely to lose their hearing. And so I see the correlation you're making but let me just go back to a different question. I don't want to derail you here, but you're saying from like 18, 19, 20 up till when?
I mean, just like right around that time, like I think like 15 to 25 in that range, but it's usually 18, 19, 20. Yeah.
So how many people I think about that I know in my life or have been portrayed in movies, in TV shows, that they're in their 40s and 50s, but they love the music from high school and college.
Yeah.
And this is making so much sense to me. I know we're talking about musical hallucinations, but even just preference, right? Like now it would be classic rock, which hurts my heart. I'm so old, but right, like I do. Now that I think about it, I have a very eclectic musical taste, I think, but I do gravitate back to the times of my life, the songs that I listened to during that period.
I've heard Casey say to our kids at different times, like a song will come on from the 80s, and Casey will start singing it, and they'll kind of like, Mom, like this was more like when they were in high school and stuff,
right?
And she's like, no, you don't understand how important this song is. This song is so important because when we were teenagers, like they are now, I mean, like they were when she was telling them that, these were the songs that are important to us. So yeah, I think that is why you go back to those songs from your teens.
And then when I'm if I make it that long, in my 80s, and I start to lose my hearing, my hallucinations will be late 80s, early 90s
probably
music. Yeah. Tell me again what's it called? What's the bump?
The reminiscence bump.
Reminiscence bump.
It's because they're asking them to think back over their life and tell what things they remember. So you're reminiscing, and there seems to be in the timeline of reminiscing, there seems to be certain bumps that everybody has. And so the first one, I mean, the biggest one that's kind of
the
common
biggest
with everybody
one is
that those teenage years, late teens.
The biggest one, yeah.
And then there will be a bump around something else big that happened in your life. Like if you get married when you're 30, then there's a big bump around the wedding time. It's usually things that are emotionally charged.
Okay,
that you
that's an
have in life.
emotional piece, the wedding thing. But
Mhm.
I want to be clear. This is for
For
me. I'm
most
sorry
people
that I
it is.
keep. Yeah. Oh boy. But no. But in that age bracket you're talking about, I thought I heard you say from, let's just call it 15 to 25, whatever that is. But there's an actual there's a difference in your brain.
Yeah.
Your
I mean, your brain doesn't fully mature till around 25.
right.
The frontal lobe and all, yeah.
Mhm. But so while you're going through that process, this stuff that happens, and I'm assuming it expands well beyond music, movies, TV shows.
Oh yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's
yeah.
everything
Yeah,
that your brain is ingesting during that time.
Mhm.
You would probably end up preferring that.
Yeah.
This is,
Yep.
yeah. So, okay, here we're at that part of the show where my mind is like, I can't. This makes so much sense to me
Oh, good.
for so
Yeah.
many reasons.
Yeah. So then when you're thinking about things, when you're hearing things, so it comes back to then you're hallucinating music. You're hearing songs and they're not from external. So that means they have to come from internal. So your
Mm-hmm.
brain's creating the song. So what's it going to create the songs from? And it's from memory. And if that's where a lot of your memories are from, then that's what gets played.
Yeah, and you could argue the strongest memory too
Yeah.
is from yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's usually with older people. I mean, there's other ways that it happens too, but it's usually when all of a sudden the brain is not getting the sound input like it used to, and your brain has to keep functioning to survive. And that's what is similar to the phantom limb. The part of the brain, if the arm's cut off, the part of the brain that responded to the arm will reach over and start connecting to other things because it's wanting to. It stays, alive by connecting and sending signals. So it's trying to send signals, and all of a sudden you're cutting off sound, and so it creates signals. Like from memory, it'll start signals. So now you're hearing the full-blown music or song as if and it feels like it's outside of you at that point. And so deafferentation is the kind of the neuroscience term for it, because there's in the brain, there's afferent signals and efferent signals. And I won't get too deep into it, but I would tell students, if there's two brain areas and they're talking to each other, then the one who sends a signal, it's sending an efferent starting with an E, because you can think of exit, it's exiting that part of the brain to go to the other. And then the brain that's receiving that signal is afferent, starting with an A. So they're kind of the same word. One starts with an E and one starts with an A. So afferent is what receives information to play it. So that's what normally when you're hearing music, the afferent system is then creating the perception so that in your head, you hear the music, the perception of it, but that's been cut off. So it's deafferent. So it's deafferentation. So that means that the external has been cut off. Now your brain is just generating it on its own.
Because again, most often in elderly folks, hearing loss.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not receiving as much or any of the external stimuli. And so your brain is just kind of making it up, and it's doing it from memory.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask a different question now, because you just sparked something else in my head. But I do remember the memory episode, by the way. But when we were talking about memory, you've talked about several times about how strong the emotional, like it's when something is emotional, how well you remember it usually, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm thinking about music, but there are times where I hear a song, even a part of a song, and it takes me back to a memory. It's a very strong, like it's not the same as smell for me.
Mm-hmm.
Smell is like I can go right to my grandparents' basement, like
Yes.
whatever. But a song, I have an emotional reaction to a song that reminds me of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm tying it back to like when that thing happened, when either the song was playing or whatever it is, the memory forms so strong
Mm-hmm.
that I can go back there so fast with what I would argue is a little bit of nudging, a little bit of input.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, we're tying all that together to say, I know we're talking about hallucinations, but we're still talking about memories. And then so that memory just is it's not creating, but like, do you understand what I'm
It
kind
gets
of getting
triggered
at?
so fast. It's such a strong memory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. With even just like you hear the opening of a song
Mm-hmm.
and it just bang, to a memory.
Yep.
That's interesting. And then when you tie it to, we keep saying hearing loss, but, or hearing impairment.
Mm-hmm. No, well, you know what? I mean, there's some, I was reading, this has been a while ago. I should have, so, I knew we were going to do the topic. You said, how about musicophilia? And I was like, yeah, okay. But I hadn't even thought of several things we've talked about today. I would have looked some of this stuff up. But I remember reading an article that researchers now are looking into. They're worried, the deafferentation thing I was talking about, where if you get noise, you're more likely to hallucinate or for your brain to fill things in if you have sound cut off. They're starting to say that things like AirPods with their noise canceling capabilities, now are potentially creating mild deafferentation effects in younger people who are using them, to where they're not sure long-term what it's going to do. So completely canceling out all noise can have effects on your brain and how it operates, because we usually operate in a environment where there's some noise. I mean, not 24/7 unless you live in New York City or whatever, but I'm just saying that normally you're in environments, they don't have to be really noisy, but just a variety of noises that you can hear. And if you cut all of that out, then that's changing how your brain is processing stuff.
So I'm okay. Let me try and show off for a second. This is going to backfire, but, no. So we're set up. Our brain is set up for survival.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the information that we intake, whether through our senses, your brain has the ability to filter out things that it doesn't necessarily need.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue maybe that's not a skill, but either way, sound. And so again, from a survival standpoint, you hear a crash over there and we're going to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then try to identify what just happened. That's a survival skill.
Yep.
But then another layer of that is I'm in an environment with some noise. Again, it's not New York City, but I'm in the, well, no, that'd be pretty loud, but I'm in the cafeteria at the college.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain is constantly going kind of, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. My friend is talking to me over here. I'm going to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully this makes sense. But your brain is actually always learning.
Working. Mm-hmm.
It's always working.
Yep.
And now if I take those AirPods and put them in, now my brain is only focused on listening to what's coming through my AirPods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not working. It's not doing anything else because it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have anything to do.
And if I do that over time, if I do that enough over time, that, I keep calling it a skill, that's on me, but my brain's ability to filter out non-essential
Mm-hmm.
information for my survival, it actually might diminish.
Yes, it would diminish, but also then your brain, because all those other sounds it's filtering out, that's creating activity for the brain, and the neurons are firing. And if it's quieting those down over long periods of time, because it's okay for your brain to quiet down for a while. I mean, hopefully when you sleep and things like that, and it's okay to be in a quiet environment for a little bit. But if you try to make your environment always quiet, then those parts of the brain that are processing and filtering all this stuff get damped down to where, if they're less active, they'll start trying to do something else. Or, it's just like, if you're not going to use this, then we'll reassign it to do a different task. And now it might be that then you can't filter. So now you go to a noisy environment. It's almost overwhelming.
It's all noise. And your brain doesn't have the ability to filter out the essential, non-essential, survival. It doesn't do that anymore because you haven't needed it for a long time. And now that you need it, I can't help you.
Yeah. And so also like ASMR, people wear, headphone stuff to try to cut everything out so they hear just the little ticks and clicks on ASMR and things like that. And if you're doing that for long periods of time, especially the noise canceling part of it, like if you have headphones, but there's still ambient noise getting in, I know why you have noise canceling, because you want to get rid of the ambient noises so you can sleep or focus or whatever. But just wearing those a lot, especially younger people, I think is part of it, because that's where your brain is still learning and developing.
Younger meaning what age?
Well, teenagers, like early teens, like middle school to high school.
Yeah. Because I do see a lot's pejorative, but I do see a lot of younger folks wearing those headphones. Yeah. And I do think that I get, why. But because all of that stimuli through the ears is just overwhelming.
So is it legal to wear earpods while you're driving a car?
I
always thought it wasn't.
think it is. I don't
but
think
I
it
see
is.
people all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's noise canceling, and that's really bad if you're in a car and you're
you're supposed to be able to hear brakes, horns,
or
some
a siren
of those things,
or horns, or
But listen, I don't know what it's like to have a not atypical. My brain is, I think it's typical, probably not, but I don't know I don't know what it's like to have a atypical
brain.
I don't know what it's like to need noise canceling headphones to walk around the world. So believe me, I'm not saying, I'm just interested in, now that you brought it up, when you are wearing those, and the effect that it's having on those pathways.
Yeah, I don't think everybody who wears them are wearing them because they have to. Like some people do need.
Yeah, I'm talking about
noise.
Them, the ones that actually need them.
Okay, yeah.
Right. No, listen, there's a bunch of people I see running around with noise canceling AirPods all the time. And I know they're important and they got to talk on the phone and stuff, but listen, we've talked about that. I'm thinking, if what you're saying is true, that by wearing noise canceling headphones, that in these people that I'm talking about, you actually need them to kind of go about your day in the world. But you've already said that by wearing those long term, that there is a change in the brain itself, in what it's doing. You've already talked about like redirecting, not jobs, but you're not giving me anything to do. I'm gonna go find something else to do.
Yep.
And that's where I was really going, is that there are people that I believe need those headphones. They wear them all the time.
Yes.
And that is just to get them through the day, because without them, it would be.
Some people can't filter out. And so it's just too much stimuli. It's like, the noises are like, it's like wearing sunglasses. If everything is so bright, it hurts your eyes, then sunglasses help. And so sometimes the noise is so bright, it hurts their ears. So they put on headphones because that helps. Yeah. So there's some people that need it. You're right.
And that's who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The people that actually need this. But what I'm kind of around the edges of is, yes, that they're wearing that, and yes, that they have to do this, but there could be a negative effect of it, in that some of the neural pathways might get reassigned to other things.
Yep.
And I don't know, because this is somewhat recent, last 15 years,
like the noise canceling
headphones. Yeah, I'm talking about over the ear.
Yeah.
Like, but even AirPods are less than 15 years, I think.
Oh
the
yeah,
technology.
I think so. But no, noise canceling, you're right. 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah.
if you're on an airplane and there's a screaming kid somewhere, it's helpful to be able to kind of cancel that out so you can focus or whatever. But yeah,
I
there's
mean, I wear
times
them on the
for it.
plane just because I don't want to talk to anybody.
Without any
But
music
usually,
on, but you have them on.
yeah, no, I just have them on. I'm kidding. I'm just that's to me an interesting side effect of doing this. Like, we've diagnosed someone with any variety of neurological issues to make them have an atypical brain.
Mhm.
And it's like, hey, noise canceling headphones will make you it'll give you the ability to go through the world without being overwhelmed. But
So then it's a good thing.
it's a good thing.
Mhm.
But over time, there's possible negative effects.
Well, so for somebody that has to have it though, because it's like the analogy of the sun being so bright that you have to wear sunglasses.
Yeah.
Then I mean, for them, even if there is a little bit of reassignment of tasks, that's okay, because that's still better than
It's got to
just
be worth it.
being overwhelmed with all the stimuli. It's the
Yeah.
people who don't
Oh.
struggle with that and are wearing the noise canceling all the time. And it's
Yeah.
not that you can't wear them, but when you're wearing them all the time, like you're grocery shopping with them, you're driving your car with them, you're with your friends and you're kind of talking through them and you still have them in, that's when it can, there's probably going to be some negative side effects that you didn't plan on if you're doing that.
That's a good distinction, John. That was a very good distinction.
Good.
The need for them, we're willing to make some sacrifices in some neural pathways, but if you don't need them, maybe give it a thought or two here.
Yeah, take them out once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I wear them, but I wear them only when I'm making a phone call, which in today's world is not that often.
Yeah.
But so I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't wear noise canceling earbuds. I do, but it's for
I think that everybody should have I think it's good sometimes to have them and wear them. It's just the constant use of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Just like sunglasses are good out in the bright sun. So if you're someplace that's really, really noisy and you just want to block that out for a second, if you're riding on the subway or something and you just want to block that out for your short trip, then I think that's fine. Yeah. I'm not against noise canceling AirPods.
Thank you for taking that stand.
It's just something that researchers, I think, are starting to look at, because like you said, in the last 15 or 20 years, you're saying, wow, the population is changing their habits and behaviors. Mm-hmm. We should look into that and see if it's having any other effects, which is what scientists will do.
I didn't think about it until you started down this road and it hit me what could be happening. Again, we've talked about this, but what I do over and over and over again for long enough, my brain goes, got it. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Build a subroutine. This becomes our thing.
Rewire everything. And
that goes for good and bad things.
Yeah.
So just think about, think about that.
Yeah. Then there's like, sometimes music can cause seizures. So it's museogenic. No, I can't remember. Anyway, epilepsy, meaning that epilepsy that the source is music. And I was this might have been in Oliver Sacks' book as well, but a music critic who their job, I think it was her job, was to listen to orchestras and different things and then write the critique about it. And there was a certain type of music, I can't remember the name of it. It was an Italian, it's a style of music, I think from Italy, like Neapolitan or something like that, that when she heard it, she would have seizures. It would send her into seizures. So there's certain types, something about I said that our brains will sync up or lock up to some of the music, the phases in music phasing, and something about a specific type of music, I guess, synced up with her brain, and it would cause seizures. So there's that, and then there's also tone deafness, which is maybe a little bit different, but some people are tone deaf where they can't hear changes in what am I trying to say? Like in courses, what am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say with tone deafness? You can't tell if you're playing if somebody's singing an A and somebody else is singing a B flat, they don't realize there's a difference between those two because they're tone deaf.
Okay. But that's genetic, right? You're born with that.
Yes. So they can't tell when there's a change in pitch. And tone deafness is people use that like they do color blindness when it's not really you're
not tone deaf.
Yeah, and
you're tone impaired. You're tone.
But also they use it for like if somebody sings a little bit off key or off tune a little bit, they'll say, yeah, they're tone deaf. It's used generally widely when I think it's only like 2% or 4% of the population is literally tone deaf, where they can't tell differences. But what I was going to say about that is research shows that in the auditory cortex, it's registering the differences. It's just past the interpretation of that. At some point further along in the brain, it's the signal's getting...
It just breaks down after that. But it's still, it's doing what someone who can recognize those things is doing.
At the very earliest stage.
In the beginning, but then beyond that, somewhere
it's similar, when we talked about cortical color blindness, like your eyes are taking in all the different wavelengths of light, processing them perfectly different. But then when it comes to the part of the brain that adds the color to it, that part's messed up. So then you don't see colors. And so I think it's similar with tones, with sounds and music, is that everything's working fine till you get to that part that it's going to recognize the tones, and something's wrong there, so you just don't hear the changes in tones.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting things about music and how the brain processes it. It's a great topic. I wish I knew more about it. Didn't even mention music therapy. Some therapists use it as part of their therapy to help people cope with life and with personality disorders and all kinds of things. They use music therapy, and I think usually with trauma, it's really found to be effective. So music is fascinating.
It's fascinating to me. That's why I wanted to talk about all this with you. It just sparked that reading that article.
I had not heard about that. Mary Steenburgen, am I saying that right? Steenburgen. Mary Steenburgen. I love her acting. Yeah,
I do as well. But again, she wrote an Oscar-nominated song.
That is crazy
for a movie about. So I'll just tell you the movie. It's about a girl in Glasgow who wants to be a country western singer in America. That's the whole movie. The soundtrack from top to bottom is phenomenal, to include that song that I'm referencing.
And one more time, what's it called?
Wild Rose.
Wild Rose. I'm going to watch that.
The thing about it is the star of it is Rose, and she's got some issues. She's got some issues.
But I love movies around music. I don't know why. I love those.
Then I honestly check out Wild Rose.
I'll watch that.
Yeah. And
is
anybody
it recent
else?
Or
no? It was 2017, I think.
Okay.
Put me on the spot, but it was about that. It was around that time. So John, thank you as always for indulging me. I just sent you a text like, "Do you want to talk about Musicophilia?" And you're like, "Sounds good." So I appreciate you indulging me all my crazy.
No, it's so interesting.
I learned a lot as usual. So thank you.
Good.
Yeah. So anybody else? Hopefully you learned something too. Hopefully you found something interesting.
I did too.
You learned some things.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, that doesn't always happen on the show, so that's good.
I feel like it usually does. Yeah.
No, come on.
It's usually cultural references that you're catching me up on.
Well, the cold open did reference Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, so I'm a nerd. I embrace it, but I'm not going to tell anybody on the podcast you didn't know the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. It's okay. It's okay.
But see, that was during that was the reason I don't remember that is that was before my Reminiscence.
That was my 15 to 25.
Yeah.
That was in my
I wasn't born yet, I don't think, when Star Trek.
I don't think you were born yet when that came out. I don't need any help feeling older than I am. No, John, in all sincerity, I thank you for your time. I know you're busy, and I can't wait to talk about what you're doing on this podcast. We're just not there yet, but doing some earth-shattering stuff in our world. But until we can get to that, I'll just keep sending you text messages with crazy topics.
Yes, that sounds
And,
good.
We'll see how far we can go. But for everybody still with us, thank you. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow the show wherever you're taking in the podcast. And until next week, take care of yourself, and we'll see you then.
Grain juice, Sean.